Hello to you all, and welcome back to another Live Better series presentation. And today we're going to be talking about what I would ask you to consider what might be the most important topic in your life. And not only do I think that, but somebody that I have a lot of respect for, Dr. Viktor Frankl, and another person, Dr. Stephen Hayes, would say that as well. That the topic that we're going to talk about today, and that's living a life with meaning, might be the most important topic for us in our lives. Because I think when we stop and think about it for a minute, we all realize that when we have a sense of meaning, our lives are going in a really good direction. We feel like we belong, we feel like we're connected, we have a sense of purpose. We feel good about ourselves and we feel good about being alive. Those times, though, when we're disconnected from our meaning, that we're wondering, what is the meaning of my life? What's the purpose of my life? What am I doing here? Those can be very difficult and disconcerting times. So as we're thinking about this idea then, and hopefully you're thinking about this right now as we're talking about this, right? About what's meaningful in your life today. And of course, an important theme that we have with our acceptance and commitment therapy Live Better series is that all of us can live a vital life and a meaningful life. Let me repeat that. I think it's really important that we all let that wash over us and that we agree with that, I hope, that we can live a vital life, we can be really alive, and that we can live a life with meaning. So, to live a life that is really vital, it's important that we live our life based on values. We're going to be talking about that today, asking you to think about what are your value, is most valuable to you? What do you value the most? What are your priorities? 1, 2, 3. What are the most important things in your life? We're also going to be talking about what Dr. Viktor Frankl talked about, which is that to be fully human and fully alive, we need to be conscious and responsible, which means we need to be awake and we need to do the right thing. So Frankl's idea about being awake and being conscious, it goes right along with what we've talked about in ACT therapy, which is about being mindful, being awake, not being oblivious, not being driven by fear or driven by hurt or driven by resentment, or driven by pride. Sometimes someone might have turned to us and said, you're oblivious. You don't even know what's going on here. You don't even get it, huh? So when we're awake, when we're mindful, we're in tune with ourselves and we're in tune with the present moment. So what we're talking about here is really living a life where we're in tune with life. There's this quote here that I sometimes share with you guys from T.S. Eliot's poem, The Four Quartets, where he said, I had the experience but missed the meaning. Some of us can identify with that, right, huh? I had the experience but I missed the meaning. It's like I didn't even get it. Or as Thoreau said, most people live lives of quiet desperation. Some of us understand that too, living that life of quiet desperation. So today we're talking about living a life with meaning, and instead of living a life of quiet desperation, we're talking about living a vital life. And so, as we're talking about this, I want to remind you of the Bluebird of Happiness handout that I share with you guys. In fact, let me get it here. And so some of you might remember this from your past handouts or from your current handouts. And so one of the things that we want to talk about when we look at the Bluebird is, yes, all of us are entitled and we can work for living a vital and meaningful life. So along with then that idea of the Bluebird of Happiness, that we're all entitled to some when we work for it. But today we're going to be talking about what is happiness and how do we get to that. The other thing that we frequently talk about in our series is, in order to find happiness and meaning, we need to stop pushing the beach ball down underwater, and we need to let our thoughts and our feelings come up. So instead of avoiding our thoughts and our feelings, we need to let them come up and be on top of the water and let them be and observe them for what they are. Those thoughts that maybe scare us and that we want to avoid. But the other thing we find is when we let all of our thoughts and feelings come up, the other thoughts and feelings, those thoughts and feelings where we like ourselves, we love other people, and we are searching for meaning in our lives, and we're searching for goodness and health and happiness in our lives, those thoughts and feelings also come up. Now, the other thing that we talk about that's part of this paradigm, though, once those thoughts and feelings come up, we don't want to struggle against them. We've talked about that with the Chinese finger trap, huh? When we struggle against our thoughts and feelings, we really trap ourselves, don't we? So we trap so instead of struggling with thoughts and feelings related to fear or hurt or anger, we go ahead and we let them come up and we accept them. And we say, okay, right now, this is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm feeling and it's okay. I may not like it, but it's okay. And when we do that, we free ourselves. And then, of course, the other thing that we talk about is Nike 1, 2, 3. And Nike 1, 2, 3, what that means is, what are the three most important things in our lives? And we're aware of that, we acknowledge that, we validate that, but then we take action. We don't just talk about what's important to us, and we don't procrastinate, but we find the courage to step out and do Nike therapy and pursue those things that are really and truly meaningful to us. So we're going to be following today the guidance of two really important people in my life and maybe in your life as well. I hope they become important in your life. And that's Dr. Viktor Frankl, the founder of Logotherapy, and Dr. Stephen Hayes, the founder of Acceptance and Commitment Therapy. And they've helped me a lot in my life, and they've helped thousands and literally millions of people in their lives as well, who are searching for a better, healthier, more meaningful life. And Dr. Frankl founded Logotherapy, and we'll be talking about the guidance that he shared with us, the three ways that us human beings can find meaning in our life. And Steve Hayes, of course, founded Acceptance and Commitment Therapy, where he talked about by accepting our thoughts and feelings, choosing our values and committing to those values, and then taking action, that's how we can live healthy and fulfilling lives. Now, along with their philosophy being really pragmatic and important and helpful and useful as we develop skillfulness with those, I like these two guys because they've been there, done that. Viktor Frankl, as many of you know, he wrote Man's Search for Meaning. And in that book, he relates to us how he was in Auschwitz and other prison camps over the course of 3 or 4 years in World War II. And the suffering that he went through, but he didn't give up because he believed in the meaning of his life. So he did not give up. And so I have a lot of deep respect for him. And he's not just an academic writing books, he really lived it. And so I think a lot of us, I think we can say we can respect someone like that, who when he's in the prison camp, his wife died, his mom died, and his father died in the prison camp, but he still found the courage to keep going and believing that in the midst of all that suffering, his life could find meaning. And Steve Hayes, of course, is another just wonderful human being. And Steve, along with being a highly intelligent researcher, what he found was, and both of them, of course, share their stories out in the public, so I'm not telling you anything that's not out there in their books or in their public presentations. But Steve, who was a brilliant lecturer, became so overtaken by anxiety and panic, he would stand in front of his classes and he couldn't say a word. And he became, like so many of us, he became a prisoner of his anxiety. And so ACT therapy that I share with you in our classes, he didn't just use ACT therapy with his clients who were suffering with anxiety or depression or PTSD or substance abuse. ACT therapy, he used this in his own life to free himself up from that prison of standing in front of his class and he could not even talk. And so these are two really great philosophers and psychotherapists that have shared what they've used in their own personal life, as well as with hundreds of thousands and literally millions over the world, patients. So let's take a deeper look at what they have to share with us. So we just played that song by Farrell about being happy, and what a great zippity-doo-dah song that was, huh? Where you kind of feel like rocking to that. So let me mention a couple things about happiness. So happiness sometimes is like zippity-doo-dah, where we feel like rocking out. And zippity-doo-dah, everything's going my way. That's like a happy day, huh? However, happiness isn't always zippity-doo-dah. Sometimes happiness can be on a really difficult day, where maybe we're grieving, or we're sad, or we're challenged by our depression, we're challenged by our anxiety. Maybe we're new in recovery from alcohol or drugs or gambling, and it's kind of a difficult day, and we're really kind of holding on by the skin of our teeth, just kind of holding on. We can still find happiness there, because happiness can be something deeper than zippity-doo-dah. Happiness is having a sense of purpose in our lives and knowing that my life stands for something. And then we're going to go through what Dr. Viktor Frankl called the 3 core values, the ways that we find meaning in our life. So sometimes, like Farrell was singing about, happiness is zippity-doo-dah. Other times, happiness could be Steve Hayes overcoming his terrible anxiety, Viktor Frankl surviving another day in the prison camp, or us surviving another day in our life. And then how can we find that? How can we find that happiness? Because obviously, that certainly is a pearl of great treasure, isn't it? To be able to find that and live that, have a sense of meaning in our life. Again, like Viktor Frankl shared with us, if we have a sense of meaning in our lives, we can deal with anything. And that's what we all want in our lives as we go through the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. On the good days, we can say, I feel really connected, I belong, I make a difference, I'm really happy. And on the difficult days, we can say, this is a really rough day, but I know my life counts for something, I make a difference. And that I can have some happiness in my life. So when you take a look at this first handout, you see this woman painting up in the Sierra Nevada mountains. And right underneath this beautiful photograph of this lady painting up in the Sierra Nevadas, there's a Chinese proverb that says, if you want to be happy, find something to do, someone to love, and something to hope for. So let's stop and let's kind of think about that, huh? If you want to be happy, find something to do, something where we can use our talents and our gifts, whatever those are, and say, I'm going to use my talents and my gifts to make the world a little bit better place. Someone to love. Is there someone that I care about? And that might be a family member, a friend, someone in a 12-step group, someone at church, someone in this class, someone that I care about. And I can let them know I care about them. And then lastly, something to hope for. Check in with yourself today. What are you hoping for? Because we all want to aspire to have a better life. We want to hope for a better life. And we're hoping that participating in recovery and learning some new skills and some new mastery will lead us toward greater happiness and a sense of meaning, don't we? Yeah, we do. So let's go ahead and turn the page. And what we can see is this paradigm of Viktor Frankl when he's talking about happiness. So earlier we were sharing that Chinese saying about finding happiness. So Viktor Frankl's Logotherapy says basically we find happiness by making a difference. So ask yourself, where and how can I make a difference in my life today? Number 2, he says, by being present in the present moment. And of course, when we practice our mindfulness, it's about doing our breathing and being present in the present moment, isn't it, you guys? And then lastly, he says, when we're suffering, how can we have a healthy attitude toward our suffering. Those are three things we're going to talk about today then from Frankl's Logotherapy that ties right in with what acceptance and commitment therapy is that we've already studied in our other classes. So again, Frankl talking about happiness. What he says is that happiness is a byproduct of living a life with meaning. So think about that for a minute. What did he mean by that, you guys? Happiness is a byproduct of living a life with meaning. What he means is, if we try to be happy, we're just going to make ourselves more miserable, which is an old joke in vaudeville, where the vaudeville comedian came out and he said, hey, don't try to make yourself more happy. You're just going to make yourself miserable. So what Frankl is talking about, just like the vaudeville comedian, is the paradox of the more we try to grab after being happy and secure, the more it eludes us. Like when we chase a butterfly, And we chase a butterfly and we're trying to chase it and it keeps flying away from us. But if we stand still, maybe the butterfly will come and land on our shoulder, So Frankl talked about that the way we find happiness is not by, in a self-centered way, saying, how can I be happy? How can I get more of this and more of that? He says it's by forgetting about trying to be happy and living a life with meaning in these three ways we're going to talk about. And when we're engaged with life, happiness will just come as a byproduct. And so we talk about equanimity. Equanimity is a word that means I'm okay with whatever happens. Knowing there'll be good days and bad days and difficult times and zippity-doo-dah happy times and days where we're kind of blah and days when we're really into it. Days where we're, oh man, I'm not so much into that. That's equanimity, is knowing that that's what life is all about. There are ups and downs in life and we're okay with each day the way it is. We don't try to squeeze more happiness out of it because our wisdom now is telling us the more I try to find it or squeeze happiness out of it, the more miserable I'm going to make myself. There's that great saying that says, life gives us moments, and for these moments we live our lives. So that just means we go about our lives, and all of a sudden these beautiful moments come where the butterfly lands, or we see the beautiful bluebird up in the tree, the omen of happiness, or we see a beautiful sunrise or a beautiful sunset, or someone that we love comes into our life that day, and we have a great moment with them, or a favorite song comes on. So there are these little moments in life, but they come to us. We can't make them happen. But what we can do is, you must be present to win. If we hide under the covers, or if we're avoiding life by hiding under the covers, or drinking, or using, or gambling, or hiding up in our apartment and not being engaged in life, we're not going to have very many of those moments. We do need to be engaged. We need to be out there. You must be present to win, So a key word, we use this in our anxiety class. We also use this in our depression class, didn't we? That we need to do Nike therapy. We need to be engaged with life. We have to be out there living our life and then seeing what comes. So, in classes that I've taught over the last many years, I guess over the last 30 years, classes that I've taught about finding meaning in life, or in therapy sessions that I've done with people. And when I talk with them about, when you stop and think about it, what really makes you happy? I do have to admit, like back in 1983, I had a woman in the therapy session with her husband, and I said, what would really, when you, all things considered, what would really make you happy? And what she said is, she said, I want a 2-seater Mercedes. That's what she wanted. But I think that's the only person that when I asked them, what would you really want? Most of us, we would like fancy cars and a big nice vacation, but when we really think about it, most of us would say, I want to believe that my life means something. I want to know I make a difference. I want to be connected with life. I want to be connected with people. I want to enjoy my daily life. And when difficult times come, I want to have the strength to be able to deal with that in a healthy way. So, and again, I've had the difficult time, but the real blessing of being with individuals and families in the hospital when they're dying or when their loved one is dying. And I know in those moments when those families are holding hands and they're together in that last moment, that's what's important to them. Is when they've thought of, when they're thinking about how they made a difference in life and who they loved in life and who's loved them. Those are the things that are really important. And that's what Dr. Viktor Frankl talked about. So, in this journey, now the name of his book is Man's Search for Meaning. And I realize as I'm talking with you right now, some of you might be able to identify. It's like, yes, 1, 2, 3, 4. These are some ways that I feel that my life is meaningful. And I say, great, good for you. So today you have a sense of 1, 2, 3, 4, some ways that your life is meaningful. And I know you've had to work at that and struggle for that. Some of you too, as you listen to this presentation today, you might say, God, I feel kind of empty. I feel like at a loss. I don't really have any idea of what's meaningful in my life right now. And Viktor Frankl said, don't worry about that, because sometimes we panic, huh? It's like, oh my gosh, I don't know what my meaning in life is right now. If you don't know what it is right now, don't panic, it's okay. The thing is, just believe that your life does have meaning. And the title of his book is Man's Search for Meaning. So don't panic and just say, okay, I'm going to search for meaning. I'm going to look at what's meaningful in my life today. The other thing I want to mention to you is, as we go through life, things when we're like 8 or 9 or 10 years old, that's what's meaningful to us. And then we're 16, 17, 18, that's what's meaningful to us. Then we're 29, 30, 31, 32. There's a certain meaning in our life then. Then we're in our 40s, then we're in our 50s. So what's meaningful in our life, it evolves based on our age and also what's going on in our life. Whether we're parents, whether we're going to school, we're working, we have children, grandchildren, our health status. So each time in our life, each different epoch in our life, we may go through a time of emptiness, and then the way we fill up that emptiness is by searching for meaning and then having that aha moment saying, you know what, I found it. Right now at this time in my life, with what my circumstances are, this is what's meaningful to me right now. Okay, I hope that makes sense to you. So let's look at Viktor Frankl's paradigm. And the first way that us human beings, where we find meaning in life, that's called creative values. Now, creative values, according to Frankl, this is what I give to life. So we want to ask ourselves, given my talents and my gifts and my training and my life experience, maybe my education, my professional development, what I've learned in life as a human being, what am I giving to life right now to make the world a better place to live? Now, sometimes in a therapy session or in a class like this, people will say, well, holy mackerel, I don't have that much to give. And they'll say, I'm no Gandhi, or I'm no Martin Luther King, or, I'm not, or Albert Schweitzer, or Viktor Frankl, or Steve Hayes. It's like, no, we're not talking about big ways. We don't have to be like President Eisenhower or President Obama to make a difference in the world. It's in our daily lives. It's like that little poem about the ripple effect. In the that poem from the Tao Te Ching, where you take a rock and you throw it into the pond, and it plops in the pond, and there's just a little circle at the beginning, right? Then there's a second circle, and a third circle, and a fourth, and a fifth, and it ripples outward. So from that one little stone that we threw out there was one ripple, and then it rippled outward. And it's the same way in our lives. When we begin to make a positive difference in the life of one other person or two people or a little group of people through love and kindness and concern and compassion and caring, one or two, then they go out and then they're kind and they're compassionate and loving and caring and they believe in justice and they treat other people fairly. Then those people go out to the next level. So it's our little moments. I talked earlier about how life gives us moments, and for these moments we live our lives. It's these little moments of kindness, you guys. So we want to ask ourselves, am I manifesting that? Am I being kind? Am I being considerate? Am I being fair toward myself and toward other people? Then we might ask, what else could I do? Do I want to do some volunteer work? In my church, in 12-step groups, on the campus at NAMS or another mental health center? Do I want to help children out? Do I want to help seniors? What can I do to make a difference so that we understand that in the world, we're now part of the solution instead of being part of the problem? So when we do that, you guys, and each of us in our little way ends up making a big difference. And so stop and think about that right now, you guys, okay? A little inventory. And think about your life today and your life this week and your life this month and maybe your life in this coming week, in the coming month. How can you use your talents and your gifts and your personality to touch the lives of some other people or some other groups or some other institutions? Everybody thinking about that right now, at least one way? Okay, good. So Viktor Frankl would say, great, that is one way that your life has meaning. The other thing he says is, nobody else can do it the way you do it. We're all unique. So even though we're all the same, we're all brothers and sisters, and we might be doing the same job, the same volunteering job, or we might be interacting with the same person, because we're unique, no one can do it the way we do it. We're unique. So just like when we look up at the mountains and we see all that snow up there and all those snowflakes, and we realize, wow, there's a gazillion snowflakes up there, and they're all the same. They're all H2O. They're all water. Just like us, we're all brothers and sisters. We're all the same here. But the scientists tell us each of those snowflakes is unique. Out of those zillions of snowflakes, each one of them is unique, and so are we. So even though someone else might be volunteering at the same place we're volunteering, no one can touch another person's life the way that we do, because we're unique and we have something special. We all have something special to give to the world. And so Viktor Frankl says, in terms of being conscious and responsible, being awake and being responsible for our lives, and responsible also means the ability to respond, responding to who we are and what life needs from us. So creative values, Viktor Frankl would say, what is your unique gift to the world? And then if we're feeling afraid because we may not do it perfectly, or we think other people can do it better, or maybe we might fail, Viktor Frankl would say, do Nike therapy. Get out there and do it. Give it your best shot. Have courage. So creative values. Is that making sense, you guys, that that's one of the ways we find meaning? And again, if you're not clear how you make a difference by what you give to the world right now, don't worry about it. Don't panic, you guys. Just be mindful and let that question just be there, just like the beach ball. And just be thinking about that today or in the next couple of days. And maybe talk with some friends or your mentor, your therapist, your minister, about how can I make a difference in the world. Now, let's turn the page. And the next way that we human beings, that we find meaning in life, Viktor Frankl called that experiential values. So the first one is creative values, what I give to the world. The second way is, what do I let the world give to me? So a lot of times when we think about purpose and meaning in life, frequently we think about, what am I giving to the world? Frankl said there's a second way. What do you let the world give to you? He said we find meaning through love and beauty and relationships. What do we let the world give to us? Now, those of us who have suffered with anxiety, depression, addictive disorders, other pains or woundfulness, grief and loss, pains in our life, sometimes we've become very isolated, We've not been engaged with life. Things that we used to enjoy, we haven't gotten out and done those. Maybe we just gave up on ourselves and said, I guess I'm not going to have anything meaningful in my life or pleasurable or fun. Or maybe I'll never find anyone to love or anyone who will love me. So again, in terms of doing Nike therapy and getting out and getting into the world, Viktor Frankl said, get out, think about what you really enjoy. Is there a person that you care about? Is there a person that you love? And of course, there are different kinds of love, It might be intimate love, the love of a significant other. It might be deep affection we have for our child or brother or sister or parent or a friend. It might be the kind of love that we have when we're ministering or helping another individual. So Viktor Frankl would say that's one of the ways that we find meaning is by having loving relationships in our life. The other way then, experiential values, what we let life give to us. Let me kind of make this point. So several years ago, I was counseling a woman who for a couple of years had been really depressed. And when we're depressed, we become disengaged and we more and more get into ourselves and we don't get out. And we find less and less pleasure in life. So as we were going through ACT therapy and be mindful and accept that you're depressed and that you are, just accept that, and then choosing and committing to what's important to you. And I'd ask her in terms of experiential values and choosing and committing. I said, well, what's something that you used to like to do? And she said, I used to love to get out into the woods up in the Sierra Nevadas and to walk in the woods up there and kind of like feel it being chilly in the morning, and then as the morning turned into afternoon, it starts to warm up, and looking at the sunlight coming through the trees and smelling the pine trees and looking at the brown pine cones on the floor and looking up and seeing the blue sky and the green trees. And sometimes it's quiet, and sometimes there are some little chickadees up there, and listening to the chickadees singing. She said, I used to really love that, and I said, well, how long has it been since you've done that? And she says, it's been over 3 years since I've done that. I said, okay, you've just helped develop your treatment plan now. What I want you to do is do some Nike therapy. And I know right now, because of your depression, you don't feel like going up for a walk up in the woods. But I want you to do Nike therapy and just force yourself to go up in the woods and walk in the woods, because we must be present to win. And I said, sometimes we say, oh, when I'm no longer depressed, then I'll do it. And I said, we have that backwards. It's like, no, I'll do it, and then I won't be so depressed. So a lot of us, with our anxiety, our depression, our addictive disorders, this road to recovery, when we haven't felt much love or pleasure in our lives, sometimes we have to take a risk and force ourselves. So she started going up into the hills several days a week and walking for first a few minutes at a time, and then longer, and then longer. And then along with meditation and mindfulness and exercise and changing her nutrition and being involved in therapy and doing some work on grief and loss, that was part of her treatment plan too, was to get out and do something she enjoyed. And so gradually, she felt more vital and she felt more alive. And then gradually her depression and anxiety started to lift. And then she felt even more vital and more alive. And so there are so many things out there. Life is calling us. So ask yourself, what is something, one or two things that you really enjoy. Things that when you go, yes, that's great, I love to do that. That's kind of like when our son was like 1 year old or 18 months old, and I'd be coming home from work at the end of the day, and he would see me pull up in my car, and he'd be at the door. And as a little toddler, he'd kind of come running out the door and onto the front lawn. And he'd say, let's play airplane, let's play airplane. And so I'd pick him up and I'd twirl him around and twirl him around and twirl him around and twirl him around. And I'd set him down and he'd be all dizzy and fall down on his butt on the front lawn. And then he'd get up and he'd say, let's do it again, let's do it again. So when I think about Viktor Frankl's experiential values, what are those things that we love to do? Where we say, I feel really alive when I do this. What are those things that you love to do? That's meaningful. That's not self-centered or selfish or narcissistic. So maybe you like to go for walks in nature. Maybe you like doing photography. Maybe you like sketching. Maybe you like painting. Maybe you like viewing good art. Maybe you used to play the guitar or the banjo or the violin or the piano. Maybe you like to listen to nice music. Maybe you like to go bowling. Maybe you like to play frisbee. Maybe you like to take your dog for a walk or walk along the river. Or spend time with a friend, swapping jokes back and forth. What are the things that you like to do? So again, being conscious and responsible, you guys, huh? So being conscious is knowing, what do I like to do? Now, again, some of us have been so shut down for so many years. Right now, when I ask you that question, you're not exactly sure. It's like, gosh, what do I like to do? I've been so depressed for so long, or to have enjoyment, I've been getting high or loaded for so long, I really don't know what I really like to do. So this is part of the experiment with life, huh? Maybe try some new things and say, is there something I've always wanted to do? Maybe I'll give that a try on my own, or I'll ask some family members or some friends to do this with me or that with me. So that's the second way that we find meaning in our life. Now, the third way we find meaning in our life, if you turn the page, it's in the middle of the third page, you guys, yeah. So it's called attitudinal values. So all of these things are values. The first value is creative values, what I give to the world. The second value is what I let the world give me. The third value is when something really painful in life happens and we're suffering and there's nothing we can do to make that suffering go away. Viktor Frankl said, how we respond to that is meaningful, gives our life meaning. If we're able to respond to that suffering with equanimity, with gratitude, with acceptance, with patience, and with courage. So let's translate that into our daily lives. Let's say someone has really suffered with schizoaffective disorder. And as a result of that, mentally, emotionally, physically, their life has really declined over the course of 10 or 15 or 20 years. So they've suffered a lot. And even though they're on medications and they go to NAMI and they go to different support groups, they still have some psychological suffering every day. It's still really difficult for them. Or someone who has PTSD or major depressive disorder or bipolar disorder. We might still, certain days of the week or of the month, we might still really be suffering. So Viktor Frankl would say, how do you bear up under your suffering? Do you hide under the covers and just get in self-pity? Or do you say, this really hurts today, but you know, I have something to do with my life. I need to get out and be in the flow of life. And we do that with dignity and with grace. So another example that we see frequently sometimes with the Winter Olympics just having passed, right after the Winter Olympics, they have the Paralympics, don't they? And that's so amazing, isn't it, to see those young men and women, and even middle-aged men and women, who have lost a leg or two legs, or an arm or two arms, but they're still competing on snow by skiing and snowboarding and playing hockey. So these are people what Viktor Frankl called say yes to life in spite of everything. What Viktor Frankl said, when life really gives us lemons, we make lemonade out of it. He called that the defiant power of the human spirit, which means I'm going to have my suffering, but my suffering is not going to have me. I'm going to go ahead and go forward with my life. So that's the third way that we find meaning in life. So creative values, what do I give to life? Experiential values, what do I let life give me? And the third way, when bad things happen to good people, and we're all good people here, when bad things happen to us, do we find the courage and the patience and the grace when life knocks us down to get back up and still keep going and make a good life for ourselves and for other people? So as we're wrapping up, along with thinking about what are the three ways that I find meaning, the last thing I want to ask you to think about right now is, what is one thing that I got out of this class today that I can use? Is there something that we talked about in this class today? I can put that in my mind, I can put that in my heart, and I can use that one day at a time to make a better life for myself. Because that's what it's all about, is living better and making a better life for ourselves one day at a time. It is an honor to spend this time with you all. Thank you very much. Have a good day.